Here we are. We are live for another week. I don't know where Jen is. I'm sure she's around struggling to get in somewhere. But we got Bill, we got Jerry, Chris in somewhere in the background. We're good to go. So, Bill, what have you been up to this week?
Well, the green room discussion before the presentation today had me convinced I need to adopt a link bait title for my next blog post, which I'm working on right now, in which Google patents context is king.
Yeah. You won't believe what's clause 8.
Maybe I'll add that.
It's funny because it's something we were saying, just before the show. And I said this isn't new. Obviously, we've got newspapers that have done this for years. You've got very baity titles to some of the newspapers, particularly the cheaper tabloids, that are you can tell instantly that the story's ridiculous. It's not going to be true, and yet you still go, "What the hell can they have written that could even get that as a title? I've got to get it." And the National Enquirer, the Sport here in the UK, those papers do that all of the time. I remember one about an Avro Lancaster bomber found on the moon. Literally, that was their headline. Of course it's garbage. Of course I had to get it to see what on earth they could possibly have twisted into that headline. I can't remember. It was completely unmemorable, but it sold the paper.
I'm just thinking I actually do remember seeing that, but I can't remember what was in it either.
I mean, it was obviously just some very dodgy picture from an old thing that maybe looked like the shape of a bomber. Maybe. If you completely closed one eye and pretended that bombers could be on the moon. It's always the way. But, yeah, and I was checking up also whether you were ready for PubCon. You've got the presentation ready, but you're preparing and practicing. Yeah.
So I need to actually vocalize the words I want to say a few times and practice presenting them in front of people. I think that helps.
Yeah, absolutely. I must admit that's one thing I don't do, and I don't do it for the same reason that I hate doing. Anybody that's had me on their show to do an interview knows this. I hate rehearsing, because that means by the time it's live, I've done this, I'm bored. Literally, if you want to rehearse with me, you are guaranteeing what I won't say when we get to do it live, because I've said that, I've done that. That's done. I will find a different way.
A couple years back, I practiced with my mother and then my sister, and actually it came out really well because it was fairly polished. I had a good idea of the stories I wanted to tell and how I'd present them.
Yeah. It certainly helps to get the timings, and there are some where I've really crammed a lot into the presentation where, yeah, I'm going to want to practice it and time it a good few times. And sometimes I will go out for a run first to get the adrenaline pumping so that I'm at the same speed I'm going to be when I'm on stage, because I still get big nerves, huge nerves about speaking. Doesn't matter how many times I've done it. When it's my turn, I'm still up to the second I walk on stage. I have to pretend that it's not my go for hours. Otherwise, it's crippling, So, yeah.
It's funny, every time I've ever spoken, I've kind of timed it, and it's been like, I've got like 20 minutes, so I've somehow got I've timed it, and it's like 30 minutes. I'm thinking to myself, I've got to cut stuff out, so I cut a bit out, and then when I kind of do it, somehow managed to do it in about 8 minutes. I'm not quite sure how fast I'm talking, but by the time I've done it, I glance down at the watch and kind of go, yep, must have kind of talked a little bit faster than I practiced at that point, but yeah. I sort of have to pace myself, almost imagining a metronome sort of over and over and over, kind of like almost just something, just to stop myself from kind of talking 102 words a second and then being confused as to why I've run out of slides.
Yes. And That is one thing I do try to practice, slowing down my presentation live a little bit, because otherwise you can rush, you can go faster than the audience is keeping up with. You know the stuff. They're hearing it for the first time. They're going to need a bit longer to think about it than you're going to need to say it. Yeah, tricky. Jen, any tips on this?
No, I kind of have the same thing. I usually time it perfectly, and then I'll usually, when I'm live on stage, I'll run a few minutes short. And usually I save my last couple panels to have it so that it's something I can expand, because a lot of the conferences will have like the timer thing there, so you can actually see how much time you have left, so that you can kind of draw it out a bit if you need to, or rush through it, I guess, if you're super late, but I've never run over so far.
That's another good tip, is when you are going through the presentation, work out where your landmarks are. So if this is the slide you'll be at a quarter of the way through, you can check that when you're doing it live. Hang on, I'm going a bit fast. And that gives you time to slow down a little bit. It's just another way of keeping track.
Yeah, it's a little bit tricky when you have like I do presentations that vary from like 18 to 20 minutes up to like over an hour. And when you have a presentation that's like an hour long, I sometimes find that it's a lot harder to make sure you're keeping on track, because it's a lot harder to practice your timings for, how many times are you going to run through an hour-long presentation before you actually go and present it live, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Still, it'll amaze our audience that we actually sometimes come short on presentations, because everybody who knows that this show has been watching us go long every week for like ever.
There's always, like, if you're on a panel, it's always hard when there's also that one guy that's supposed to be speaking for 18 minutes and 35 minutes later he's still talking, so that, the next 2 speakers or 3 speakers or however many are coming on have to like totally condense what their stuff is and flip through stuff really fast. That just drives me crazy. I actually like it when you have a moderator that will actually be like, okay, wrap it up.
Yeah, you've got to, because if somebody hasn't practiced it, not everyone has done this. There aren't strict guides for all of these things. Yes, a lot of the big conferences do send out a pack that does tell you to do. But, most people never read the instructions for anything. They're not going to start with a conference.
Well, some people totally abuse it too. Like last year at PubCon, a lot of their sessions, they're set for like an hour, 15-minute block, but they're split into 2 presentations. So one person has the first half and another person has the second half. And so Google was speaking, I think, on their new mobile-friendly algo or something. And he just did like a 5-minute presentation. He's like, I know you guys have a ton of questions, so I've left all the extra time so you guys can pepper me with all the questions you have and rock to it. They did the next presentation. She took it as her like, oh, well, there's all this extra time. So she actually ran her full slot, and she took up all his time. So at the end, there was 5 minutes for questions for the 2 of them combined. And I know a lot of us were pretty put out about that. And a lot of those type of sessions at PubCon don't have a moderator. So there wasn't someone who could say, yeah, wrap it up.
No, you've always got to have a moderator, even when you don't think you do. That's why we keep feeding Anton. Anton Schultz in the audience. But, even though he says we're not needed for the Google Q&As, you never know. But, well, Jerry, this is your first time on here. So what have you been up to this week? What's your week been like?
This week, international migrations and consolidations, which is always fun when you're trying to do migrations and you don't speak a word of the chosen language, and you kind of go, I'm sure if I redirect this page to this page, no one will know any difference. Yeah. I'm sure everything went fine. What could possibly have gone wrong? But yeah, migrations and consolidations, basically, and trying to figure out, what Google's been up to with the latest algorithm updates, and actually not seeing anything significant. So it's been good.
Yeah. I said to Jen earlier this week that we'll probably have to talk about Penguin, because somebody's bound to bring it up.
Sorry.
But so far, no need. So, we might not have to. We have got an audience question, which we will be getting to in a little while. But, Jen, what have you been up to this week?
I was at SMX East speaking last week, and so that was pretty much my entire week, was just hanging out there and going to the conference and going to the parties, and yeah, then I get to do it all again next week at PubCon.
Yeah. The jet set lifestyle. You're on tour, basically.
Basically, at the moment, yeah.
Yeah, SEO rock stars go on tour the country. That's the way it goes.
Yeah, and then we'll have like a few months lull where we don't have to do anything, and then we're all kind of like, I'm kind of like getting itchy to like go and do something.
Yeah. Besides, Google, after all, might start to know which coffee shop to send you to.
Yeah.
So, what was your highlight of SMX East?
The highlight. Well, we went to the Landy Awards. I was a judge for the Landys this year, and so that was pretty cool. It's always nice to see people, dress up in their, super fancy dresses, and people were in tuxedos, and so that was kind of cool. Eric Enge actually won Search Marketer of the Year for the male search marketer.
He wasn't doing that. He wasn't in that dress again with the safety pins up the side, was he?
No, unfortunately, he duded up in a suit. Yeah, there was like some interesting sessions and stuff. I can't think off the top of my head if there really wasn't a key takeaway, because at this stage in the game, there's not too much that's really key takeaway for me anymore, but I'm sure other people were more enthralled with their takeaways.
Yeah. Are there any people that you always watch because they're just such good speakers? You always learn something watching them speak about speaking.
Elite is always interesting to watch. She always has interesting stuff to say, and the way she does her presentation and her mannerisms is always really entertaining. Marty Weintraub, he wasn't at East, or at least I didn't see him there. He's always, he gets up on stage and he just puts on such a show, and if you're on his panel and he speaks first, you're just like, oh crap, because he's just so high energy. He goes running out there, he's bouncing all over the stage, and yeah, those type of speakers are always a little bit more difficult to follow when you know that they're that type of speaker. You really have to totally amp up your personality and stuff to compete with that.
Yeah.
Well, what about Go Fish Digital? Go Fish Digital took home an award too, right?
You took home 2 awards, didn't you? Or was it just 1?
No, just 1. We were shortlisted for 3, but we won just 1. I think we were shortlisted for 4, actually.
I think I may have judged one of yours.
Yeah, they only wanted the 1 because they were worried about a duplicate penalty.
Well, one guy came on stage and he accepted it, and he's like, I really don't want the award, I just want the good backlink from Search Engine Land.
Awesome.
Classic. Kristen, how are you? How's your week?
Good. Yeah. Let's not talk about my week.
Not good, hey?
And Terry, up to no good, obviously, but in what manner this week?
You
Terry?
talking to me?
Yeah.
Well, I didn't. No problems with penguins. We shot them in the head in 2012, I think it was. Just killed them all. I was interested, though. Had a client telling me how Gary Ilias had said that don't bother with disavowed files. We'll look after that for you. Yeah.
I think people kind of interpreted that a little bit. I think from the interpretation, it was really that you don't have to disavow because you can remove links. And Penguin's more devaluing the links as opposed to penalizing sites for those links. But on the other hand, I think we're going to see a ton more people doing spam reports on sites that have bad links, because if people are going and removing their disavows, that's still not going to protect you from manual action for a link-related thing. And Google's also said there's other algos that look at links as well that can be impacted by those bad links as well. Just obviously not to the degree that Penguin used to do that. So there's still a lot of reasons why you'd want to disavow. I really caution against people who are thinking, oh, I'm just going to remove all the disavows from all my sites and everything's going to be golden. Because, I mean, I know there's search marketers out there thinking like, okay, I'm seeing this site all of a sudden is bouncing up. I bet you they'd remove their disavow. If I go and file a spam report on them for bad backlinks and it gets looked at and they say, oh, they used to have this disavow, not a disavow anymore, let's have a look at these links, I bet you'll see a manual action pop up.
Yeah.
First of all, why would you disavow that you would put there? That doesn't make a lot of sense.
You cut out. I didn't hear what you said.
Oh, sorry. My question was, how can people think that if you make a disavow file that you should remove it? For what reason?
Oh, I'm not saying that's what I recommend, but there's definitely people out there saying, yeah, remove all your disavows. It's great. Oh, yeah.
I have seen some disavow files where literally you almost need big data to kind of interpret them. I mean, these things are huge, literally tens of thousands of lines long. And when I start going through it, I'm kind of going, why on earth have they disavowed, some mainstream media and some, I found Google.com in there because somebody had created some dodgy blogspot kind of type stuff and everything like that. But generally speaking, when I've gone through these massive disavow files, I've often found there's a few really nice, great links in there. And it's just somebody has basically gone at it with a hatchet, which is often the recommended way. But at the same time, when you've kind of got it removed and all the rest of it, just time to kind of have a look back and have a look, see if you can, just tweak it a little bit just to kind of, you're investing in outreach, you're investing in link building. Yeah, let's kind of improve it there instead.
Yeah, I mean, I think there is a lot of value in if you do have these massive disavows to go and have a look at it and, look at it with fresh eyes or have someone else look at it and see if some of those links should be, taken out of the disavow. Because a lot of times people, when they're doing their disavow, and they're kind of like in the panic mode and like, oh my God, let's like put everything in here to get our site back in the index.
That's not what Matt Cutts said when they started the disavow. He said, basically, you're telling us we're still going to decide the value of a link. Disavow something that you shouldn't have, we got you covered.
Yeah.
That's basically what he said at the time that the disavow file was started.
That was, of course, quite a long time ago. I pulled up a comment a moment ago. Omi was saying that most of the time disavowing links is a waste of time.
That, I mean, I do agree with, because a lot of times people, they react. They see, oh my God, I have these backlinks. And a lot of time Google can figure it out. It's more if you've done dodgy things with links in the past, that's when you really, people are saying that, there's, the Google, they can't figure this out. But generally, I mean, I don't think they would have gone this route with Penguin if they weren't a lot more confident in their abilities to determine link value and spammy links.
There are two times
if you
when
start
I think it's worth it.
really spammy profiles, you'll see that when you actually go to clean them up, about 30% of the sites that they're linked to, the domains are dead, gone, buried.
Well, something that some sites do actually that people think sites are buried is they go and they remove the homepage. And I think it was Marie Haynes I think it was Sean Menz that was saying they were seeing a lot of sites that had knocked off the domain, and because they were stalling links or they were trying to do negative SEO, people that just went to the homepage, saw the homepage was dead, assumed it was, all good and they could ignore it. But if you actually went to the deeper link, it was still active. Yeah. So that is something to be aware of. I don't know how common it is, but it was common enough that people were concerned about it.
The way Omi said that, it just made me think.
Spammy sites were just dropped. When the registration came up, it was closed. You see that you can register.
There's definitely there's definitely cases like that for sure. And we see people that go.
Not a few cases.
We see people that go and register those domains, thinking, it's a great domain that they've got, and then
there's two times that I would.
It doesn't necessarily mean it's someone who knows what they're doing. It could be someone like, a friend of mine who has absolutely no clue about internet marketing is sitting with a glass of wine one night and says, oh, this domain's are registered and it's available, and they have no clue to go and look at archive.org. They have no idea that there's all these issues. And we see it pop up all the time, like in the Webmaster Help forums, where people are like, well, I have this domain and I don't know why it's not being indexed. And then sure enough, they go and we check archive.org and you're like, phew.
Yeah, but they know when sites are shuttered, like you don't even have to worry about. And when you do it, there's a protocol that happens that they're up for registration, because they have to let the request know that it's a dormant domain.
Yeah, but it still doesn't stop the people who just don't know enough to look at that.
General rule of thumb, there's 2 times that you want to do disavows. One is you've built some spammy links, or you've employed an agency that have built spammy links in the past and you want to undo that. That's fine. And the other one is your domain has at some point been hacked, and there might be a few pages somewhere that are still around that might have other hacked sites linking to them. You might want to disavow some of those sites that appeared during that time. Other than that, forget it. Don't worry about negative SEO attempts. Don't worry about a lot of other things.
Why not worry about negative SEO?
Google has said if you know a case where you've seen negative SEO actually work, Gary Ish on Twitter the other day was saying, like, if you know any examples, send them to us, because they're really interested in seeing examples of where negative SEO is working. But I think it was
Google underestimates the people who are really good black hats.
How many times have we all done audits on sites and we go, and as soon as you look into it, you see like, they're claiming negative SEO, and then you go back and you're like, yeah, no, you hired this link builder and this is what they did, and they tried to hide it, but this is actually what happened.
So one issue I did come across a year or so ago was I was working on a website with quite a huge amount of user-generated content, and a lot of the profiles had, oh, by the way, I sell Viagra on the side almost, or whatever it is. I don't know how to pronounce this other one, the one that begins with C. But anyway, that's the one. Is that how you pronounce it? Okay.
Yeah.
I've learned something new. Anyway, they basically had huge amounts of sort of spam link coming into those user-generated content type pages. I mean, one of the things that I did is I put all those pages in a no index, no follow, and also sort of put quite a lot of it into a kind of into the we were just talking about the disavow file. But it was something where, I was like, I don't think it's going to have any negative impact, but it's certainly not a positive thing. And it's probably something that we need to kind of address as going forwards by just removing the possibility of putting the links in the profiles to kind of have this effect. I mean, this I've actually seen on 2 or 3 other forums since working on this particular one that had a massive problem.
Anybody can go to a forum, set up an account, and you can do it with bots. I know a guy who can do literally millions of sites. And, boom, you've got more links than you would spend years disavowing them all. He can create them that fast.
Oh, absolutely.
The classic thing.
So negative SEO is possible if someone's willing to spend the time and money to do it.
We know.
To say it's impossible is to make a claim that you can't prove. Google can't even prove it. It's making people too comfortable. Sorry.
We know that there are companies that have bad SEO practices that can be penalised. So the simplest form of negative SEO is to go and hire the worst SEO company you can on behalf of somebody you want, and get them to do their SEO that gets penalties on that site. It's that simple. It's half the time, it's the so-called link building companies offshore. You just hire them for some enemy and wait. And often they will manage to knock them down a peg or two. They certainly don't do them any good. There is always a risk with negative SEO that maybe Google isn't as advanced as you think, and it will actually help them. That's always the risk you take. That's always been the risk of negative SEO. It's a risk I've been pointing out since 2006 on the forums. You know, negative SEO has always been possible as long as the search engines have penalties. Then all you have to do is fool the search engine into thinking that site deserves a penalty for what it's doing when it's actually you doing it. It's that simple. Anyway, doing it for free.
So
No.
do the same thing to you, you know, because it's not like you have to actually be the person you're claiming to be. That's my point. Like, it's definitely doable. I will never believe otherwise, because anybody can make a link to a site. It's you can build hundreds or thousands of websites, make them bad, and link to all the people you want to hurt. It's not, you know, it's a lot of work, but it's not impossible. So should have their guards up for it and be at least aware that it is possible, or when it does happen,
Hello.
just
Hello there.
Sorry to interrupt everyone mid-flow.
No problem, no problem. And I see we have another guest joining us next to Jerry there.
You can talk.
Sorry, I'm late as well. I was giving dinner to the children, so I'm here.
No worries at all. Lovely to see you here. So it's so rare we get an audience question that I'm gonna bring it straight up, because you know we like this. It's a novel idea. I'm gonna have to read it out because not all of it has come through. But it was to Bill. It was on his show of the event. I have a doubt regarding SEO. I have a site mainly into IT related topics like software testing, interview questions, and all. It's getting decent traffic from search engines. Now, I'm planning to add some contents which are not related to IT topics. The new topics are entirely different, like solar organic farming, health, etc. Will it affect my current positions and traffic, or will my site overall ranking boost due to larger size site and more backlinks? I'm really confused about it. We can tell. I'm really confused about it. Is there any type of classification? He basically wants some guidelines here. Whether, you know, putting non-IT topics will cause his site to drop, or whether it will do him any good. Bill, you first, since you were the one he asked, and then we can all jump in.
Okay. So there are no specific guidelines or rules from Google that describe and tell you to stay on topic, stay within the context of the content that you've started the site with. Nothing says you can't create a page about Britney Spears explains mathematics and on a website that's about math as a link bait exercise, but to a degree, and somebody has created that page and it's gotten a ton of traffic and links. And if you want to write about solar farming or something else on a page that's IT, and you think that it'll be popular and people might come to the page, I'm not sure that it's going to necessarily harm you if your audience is fine with it.
Yeah.
If they keep on coming to your website.
For me,
like I said, nothing in the Google guidelines to say stay on topic.
Exactly that. I mean, imagine you had a company that has built a search engine. You've called it Google.com. And then you decide to start messing about with driverless cars and maps and satellite images and maybe a social network or two. And, it's fine. The thing is, what you notice they don't do is they don't stick these things on the homepage of Google. They associate it with the brand, but they'll usually give it its own subdomain. They'll give it a mention on the blog, which is all things about the company. They're not mixing the topics into one area so that the audience is still finding the stuff it wants to. It's got little bits of serendipitous discovery of the other stuff, but never in the
Though if we're
way
gonna
of
stick-
what they're trying to do.
If we're going to stick with that analogy, we have to admit that Google did rebrand last year, and they're now Alphabet.
Yeah.
It has two entities instead of one, which was what I
Well,
which I was going to suggest was the easiest way to get traffic to those new pages is to probably spend $30 for a nice WordPress theme and go to it.
That's certainly something I've recommended to companies in the past when they're breaking away from a particular niche to go wider, is I tell them to do exactly what Google have done, except, you know, this was advice long before Google did it. Create a parent company, a brand holding company that can be the parent to what you've got at the moment and can be the parent to this new thing, rather than split the focus of what you're strong in. Create a new entity that can leverage that. We are the people who created this, but we're also doing this, this, and this. You're not mixing them directly. You're making them siblings rather than trying to put it all under one umbrella.
We've seen some large tech blogs like Gawker, sister sites on different topics. Like they've got one dedicated to automobiles. I think it's called something like Jalopy or something like that. And it focuses upon and the idea of creating a memorable entity as an umbrella, as a focus for that different topic, that different concept, isn't a bad one, because if people remember it, if people can spell it, if people can find it, you may benefit from that brand building.
Yeah.
And I'm not necessarily sure that I would call it brand building from an SEO stance. I like the term entity building better.
Entity creation is a reasonable enough term these days. When we're all trying to define entities, it helps if you can keep that entity quite clear and more easily defined. The more you diversify that one and make it vague and fluffy, the less effective it's going to be as an entity that Google can clearly recognize. So,
and making it easier for Google to recognize is a good thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So overall, our advice seems to be, if I'm clicking this up, and feel free to jump in if there's any more, but definitely users first. You know, if it's just because you want to write about these new things, it might be worth creating a new blog about that and just linking your existing site to your new blog. Keep your users in mind first, but beyond that, there's nothing against it. Just make sure it works for users, because after all, Google is a big engine trying to model how users think and how they behave. Stephen, your first time here on a Bogus Hangout. How was your week? What have you been up to?
It's been good. It's been busy, hence being late. You know, just a train ride home from London to Leeds is quite a way. So yeah, and Virgin trains can't stock as well. So. But no, it's been good. It's been good. I'm sorry I've missed the first hour.
Yeah, no worries. You know, it's easier than you trying to jump in on the train.
Oh yeah, definitely. Just you know, on that last question, I think for me it's about effort. So the easiest analogy I can think of is a long time ago we redirected our old founders blog Storm into branded3.com. We wrote a lot about SEO, and basically whenever we put something up about SEO, which we do frequently, it ranks generally pretty well. But as soon as we try and start writing about things that are maybe a little bit out of that comfort zone, like, you know, content marketing or whatever, it doesn't rank. And, you know, it doesn't matter. It doesn't seem to matter how often we kind of write about that. It doesn't rank. I know full well, by the way, that, you know, if we actually made a little bit of effort and did some more than just writing about it, maybe built some links or something like that, it probably would. But for me, you know, it's not harming our SEO side of things at all. It's just literally, it's not what we're associated with. So if we want to be associated with it, we've got to actually put a little bit of effort into it, and we're not prepared to do that.
I'm a fan of focus, but I'm also a fan of diversity. They both have their place. You've got to decide which is right for you. Look at this Hangout. I mean, we can talk about anything and everything. It usually has a relation to technology and marketing and SEO because it interests us. We are the connection. But at the end of the day, it doesn't need any more than that. You know, we have talked about drones. We've talked about sheep. We've talked about all kinds of things. It fits. It fits, or we have fits, one or the other. Jen just had her power flip off and back on again. She'll be back as soon as the computer restarts. Obviously, trying out the Google Home, or maybe it's Amazon Echo. Yeah, soon Google will be able to turn you off when you try to complain about anything. Yes, indeed. So, content marketing is one of those terms where, used right, yes, it's brilliant stuff. I think sometimes the term content marketing, I know it's handy. I use it. We all use it. But it's so often misused, isn't it? Because it's such a bland, catch-all statement. Is there an issue with content marketing as a term? Do we need to rescue it before it goes the way of inbound?
It's kind of, so, you know, whenever we get an RFP that's about content marketing and a client is typically the same profile of a client that will be looking for SEO in the past, it's your SEO manager, your head of SEO, whatever, who's talking to us about content marketing, and what they actually want is links. So it's just SEO. It's exactly the same, but exactly what you mean, you know, as a term, and like you say, a catch-all term. Someone talking to us about content marketing is a completely different person talking to a completely different agency or whatever about a completely different thing when they're talking to, I don't know, Seven or someone like that.
Yeah, 100%. It's a horrible phrase. Yeah, Terry, I agree. Not more than I hate inbound. Inbound was just a horrible word from the start. You know, inbound is things that are thrown at you, or missiles. This isn't necessarily a word you want to associate with things that people want to do. Even its best term, it gets associated with travel, that horrible, stressful thing we all have to do. There's an inbound journey and an outbound. It's a horrible word. It reminds you of ingrown and something to do with maybe domination, considering there's the word bound in there. Horrible, horrible term. Great idea. What we were talking about was attraction-based marketing, pull marketing. Those are all good terms. I'm happy with those. Magnetic marketing, if you want something catchy. Brilliant. Go for that. Inbound, what's that?
Biggest problem with inbound marketing is I come from a telephone background. So to me, that's a call center.
Right.
That's what we did.
Yeah.
Inbound marketing. Like, that just shows a lack of, what do I call it?
Real world experience.
You're not very, let's say you just use someone else's words for something else because you couldn't think of your own. That's the way I look at it.
I had to go to the doctor's once. I had an inbound toenail. It was terrible.
Yeah. Also, with content marketing, all marketing is content or it's robbery.
Exactly. Absolutely agree with you, Terry.
That's hopefully true. But there is actually, to an extent, you can say, look, the content is the message, not the media. The content is the actual point you're trying to get across, and then you pick the media that matches it. I have seen stuff put out there that there was no message to it. It hadn't had that level of thought given to it. So to an extent, it's possible to have stuff out there that hasn't got content.
It's thin
That's
content,
the problem.
right?
We've got too much of that passing as, content marketing these days.
Yeah. Still, there you go. Yeah, Stephen, creativity. Nice phrase. But yeah, there's a lot of companies who aren't very good at it. I don't know. There's an element to that where I think creativity. Oh, that reminds me of those classes at school. That's going to mean sticking glitter all over everything, isn't it? You know, glue, bits of wool and glitter.
You know, it was using that kind of creativity. That's the only way I could do PPC. I found it so much more in my wheelhouse, so to say, coming from a response marketing background, right? I love doing that stuff.
Yeah. Come on, couple. I know you've got something to say on this.
Different.
Oh, sorry.
Content marketing, creativity. That's your forte. Yeah, basically, for a long time, I've hated the phrase content marketing purely and simply because content and marketing, they're just one and the same thing almost. You know, marketing without content isn't really marketing, and content is something else. You know, it's just really wound me up for a long time. The amount of times where, you know, you hear somebody say, content marketing is like the new SEO almost. It's like, no, SEO has kind of got a lot more technical, a lot more elements to it. And content is an integral part of SEO. Great content has always been there. Really, really important. And one of the things that really annoys me is almost like people seem to think that content marketing is because SEO used to be shit content. And the sort of, but actually that was just shit SEO.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Couldn't agree more. Right on.
Yeah, and content, if anybody has ever worked with a sales team and polished up their pitch and knows how they respond to certain questions with a polished pitch, if you've ever dealt with a call center and you know the scripts they work through, those are content. Writing that is content marketing. Bill, you're doing a presentation next week. That is content marketing. Going up there and speaking is content marketing. Every interaction where you are transmitting a message, that message is the content. And getting it across in the right way is the marketing of that message. Well, yeah, okay, we've got everyone that. Now, did we have anything that you guys wanted to discuss this week? Jerry or Stefan? You know, I know we haven't had you on before, so pick a topic of interest this week.
After you, Jerry.
No, mate, totally up to you. Age before beauty.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Okay, well, the thing that's thinking about quite a lot the last week or so would just be a while ago I kind of made an assessment that Google's basically kind of given up with Penguin. Obviously, I guess you guys have already spoken about Penguin in depth, but I missed that, so I'm going to bring it up again. And I think, you know, from what I'm seeing, the latest Penguin role just kind of admitting defeat. Let's just get something out there. Let's try and let a few people recover if we can, and let's never ever ask us about it again if we can help it. Are you guys seeing anything that suggests any kind of improvement as far as the algorithm goes? Does it deal with anything better than it did before, or is it still just the same kind of waste of a Penguin that it's been for the last 2 years or so?
There's a couple of things.
Before there was a Penguin. Go ahead, Ammon.
Just saying, I have seen a couple of sites that have recovered. I'm hearing that around a lot. So on that basis, it does seem to be good. That was one of the things that had me worried at first when they were saying, oh, this is a new one, it works in a different way. Yeah, well, does it release the old penalties? You know, if it's got this new style of doing it where it's URL specific instead of a domain dampening factor, is it still removing the dampening factor? It seems that it is, so that's good. So on that basis, yeah, great. I think we'll have to wait and see. It's still quite early. There's a lot of sites seeing flux, but it's a bit early to say whether all of those are Penguin related. Some of the ones that have seen it most, they've had a lot of links acquired shortly. There seems to be a slight delay in how soon or how much links are counted. I mentioned this, I hate the term sandbox, but there's a little bit of a link sandbox seeming effect. that it seems to take Google a little while. It gives links a default value that maybe isn't the full value until it's been checked. Something like that. So yeah, I'm seeing small changes, but I don't expect to see anything big and major these days. Google's quite mature these days. Google's results are mostly pretty good. You shouldn't see a whole new Google. You should see minor improvements, and they should be inches, not miles, these days.
My usual tests are the ones where I'm thinking, we've kind of made a lot of as an industry of the brands that really should be there. The brands people expect to be there and aren't necessarily around. So my usual test is the biggest advertiser in the UK spends more money than anyone else's direct line, and you would expect that they rank for car insurance because that's what they do. And they just don't. They're page 3, page 4, page 5. And literally, you couldn't throw more money at PPC if you tried than Direct Line do. Links everywhere. They've made the effort to clean up apparently, but not coming back. And I find it a little bit odd that brands like that, where we make such a big deal about Google trying not to penalize brands and trying to hold brands up in better regard than your kind of SMEs, SMBs. I find that's odd that that's still happening after 3 years, 2-3 years for some of those big brands.
Well, I think their thing about brands is they're allowing brands to still rank for their name. It's not where a big brand can still rank for car insurance or Viagra or anything like that. They're still going to rank for their name. They're just not going to rank for much else if they're doing really, that stuff.
Before there was
My theory on
before there was
it
a
is
penguin,
that-
Google had patents that described things like manipulative linking or doorway pages, and explained how they would identify those. And I think most people in the SEO industry believe that Google did devalue links from bad sources like that, that there wasn't a need to actually penalize websites for having those types of links. And Penguin appeared to be a way to punish and to act as a deterrent to people, to stop them from bad linking.
Yes.
It was more theater than it was actual anything else. It was don't link to bad sites, don't link from bad sites. We'll punish you for doing that. And it was more of a punishment. It was cutting off of traffic. It was more than just those links don't count.
Exactly that, a deterrent effect, and exactly that. That's when I first started to really see the complaints about FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt with Google, with some justification. Penguin was designed to create fear, uncertainty, and doubt to a very large extent, and do you know what? It worked.
Yeah.
But yeah, links. Count them, don't count them. If you can tell the difference, count them or don't count them. You don't need to penalise them.
Here's the thing, the reason, I don't think they meant to punish. I think they see it as the only way to stop it. Because when you look at this industry, especially SEOs that are link reliant, they just turn the spigot a little bit more and just spam more, because they think they can outspam Google's algorithm. So the only way to do it is to punish them by lowering their site authority, right? And making it internal so they don't see it in a PR. Because I'll tell you, the guys who I saw were real active. They thought they could clean up and go back. They got nailed again real hard. And people who did nothing after Well, they didn't see any benefit because they removed, they disavowed and removed links from their site. So obviously, it's not going to go up. It's because you haven't built any more links. And you removed them. You're going to go down anyhow, and you got that added part of really hurt your authority, and that doesn't go away in a day or two.
But it is one of those ones. Google's been very cagey. If it's about bad links, you would expect them to give not just here's a couple of examples, but here's a list of the ones we know about. Well, they don't want to do that because they don't want to show you which ones they're not aware of, so that you could backwards engineer that and say, oh, look, it spotted these, but it didn't spot those. I'm going to build another 10,000 of those. And do you know what? The black hats are aware of this. So when you do that, you are showing them what you're weak in. It's a bit like I was saying the other week, when Google were quite cagey over some of the issues about crawl priority, to me, and the people I used to know, that tells me they're a bit worried still that this could be abused, and that's why they're having to be cagey about it. I think that's questionable sometimes. But yeah, Penguin, I didn't like the bad neighborhoods, but I kind of understood it. That was who you linked to. But links to you should never be able to harm you. And it was a major misstep, in my view, that the links to you could start to hurt you. They never should. Bill, I know you were kind of similar on that. The old method of dealing with things, ethically and sensibly, it just was superior, wasn't it? I know why they did it, but it's propaganda and it's social engineering, not algorithms.
Right. It's as if Kevin Mitnick took over running Google for a few days.
Yeah. And, I understand the frustration. I understand that, people do some very questionable things. I do sympathise, but I think the web is bigger than any one of us and bigger than any one company. And it worries me when Google kind of take these slightly draconian methods at times that do impact the web as a whole. Google's too big to ignore. It's too much of a gatekeeper to ignore. And what they tend to put into place has a massive effect. And I think they do need to, sometimes they do think very carefully before putting something in. Sometimes they don't. Or at least that's how it seems to me.
I am very amused by Google's do as we say, not as we do. I mean, I don't know if you've seen the latest sort of update to the SERPs, but the amount of advertising now, and they've just taken over the Google local thing, basically. They're all adverts now. So suddenly, the amount of times, in fact, one of the biggest threats to SEO traffic is that actually went very rarely above the fold for commercial terms. So, suddenly Google's kind of telling everybody, don't put all these adverts above the fold, and then suddenly anything you Google that's of commercial value, you can't click on an organic listing unless you scroll down to almost the second page. It's getting fun. But, it's changing our strategy, certainly, in terms of what traffic we're targeting and everything. But, it does amuse me how we are so reliant on Google. And especially when Google kind of turned around to other companies and said, you know what, you're all, let me think of a polite word for it. You're all bad companies because you have so much advertising up the top, and we're the good ones because we don't. And now suddenly they're the ones having more advertising than those ones ever did before. Yeah. And increasingly, you can't even identify it. I mean, if I said to my mum, which ones are the ads? Well, actually, her on Google is another story, but that's not the point. She doesn't know, which ones are adverts and which ones aren't. And the point is that, we should know. They should be coloured differently. They should be clear. The tiny little ad, especially on the latest ones, is almost negligible.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I'm expecting the FTC to send another letter to Google saying, we can't find the labels on the ads anymore. You've got to fix that. This is the only letter.
Isn't that ongoing? I mean, this ain't the first time they would have had to done that, right?
It does amuse me that sometimes Google act like Google spammers do. Oh, it's been a while. I'll have forgotten about that rule by now. Let's just go back. Yeah, if we get a max sanity, we'll fix it again.
I was
What's the
amused
worst
by when
that
it was
the
coloured
FTC
differently.
can do to Google? Fine it a few thousand. Like, even if they find them millions of dollars for doing that, that's not even what they take in 10 minutes. So that's why the FTC, all power to them. Like, anything they can get away with, all more power to them. It's their business. They can do what they want with it.
The European Union was proposing a penalty that filming a photo to a VIP.
Indirect.
I'm hearing echo.
Yeah, it was Terry. I just muted him and then he started speaking. It is one of those ones. We are at the last few minutes, so I'm going to do a quick roundup of what we're up to in the coming week, and then we'll go off air and carry on chatting in the green room like we usually do, for anyone that's got time. Bill, what are you up to this week? Obviously, PubCon, looming large.
Right, I'm going to be practicing my presentation, speaking to an almost empty room, most likely, but at least saying the words that I want to give for that presentation.
Yeah. Do something to get your adrenaline going before you do it, because it really does make a difference. You'll be surprised how much. Either put on some of your favourite music and rock out when nobody's around watching, or go out for a run. Do something to get the
Take
adrenaline
pictures
going.
of your flowers.
Okay.
I'm not sure that gets your adrenaline going, but hey, whatever.
He didn't choose it.
Yeah, but he might enjoy it because it's calming and slows him down. Jerry and partner, what are you up to this week? Tell us about your week.
Well, sorry, I haven't spoken too much.
That's good.
I'm really, really busy preparing a couple of features, one for the Telegraph, one for the Guardian on women in technology. So it's been a bit intense because we've got some data, and it's interesting because I'm not building the link on behalf of the client. I'm also writing the piece myself as a journalist. So it was an interesting one because we've got the data from the client. It was very dry, it was boring. And from there, I took some stories, some very big influencers, no influencers, that's the wrong word, some interesting characters, and write those features myself. Then I've got another one. This is with an interesting one. This is with Al Jazeera English. This is following up the talk I did on Brighton SEO with one of the people I spoke to, one of the freelance journalists who is working in Aleppo in Syria. So we're working on a feature on stories of hope in the middle of destruction. So once that one is done, I'm going to share that one with you. So I'm on a very tight deadlines for a couple of features from now until end of next week. I won't be able to sleep.
And there's no time to tell you what I've been up to, but basically I'm going to be doing more deep linking.
Cool. Excellent. If you get the chance, can you pop a link in the event page to your Brighton SEO deck? Because I think a few people might enjoy
Yes,
and look at that.
definitely. Yeah, I'm going to pop the videos as well. There are the videos are a little long. I was trying to edit them, but they're still raw. They're quite they're quite good. And yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'll pop the presentation there for you guys.
Long raw videos. That's our thing. You know, that's what we do. Jen, what are you up to this week? Apart from obviously PubCon.
Yeah, Brett's actually given me a whole hour to talk about featured snippets at PubCon, so I have to do a lot of going over my slide deck again and adding some new stuff, and pretty much only working on that most of the week, I think.
There's something about featured snippets. It sounds like a biscuit or a cake that McVitie's would have come up with. New McVitie's featured snippets. You know, delicious. You have to have the Vic around. It always, for some reason, just gives me that kind of image. There's something oldie-worldy about it. Kristin, what are you up to this week? Yeah.
I never really know. I mean, like I have my base. I'm going to be writing content for accounts. That's all I really know.
Cool. So, I know you were looking around recently for sort of a change of scene. If Dawn's hiring people, do you want to hear about it?
Yeah, anyone who's listening, if you have an opportunity, I am fully all ears at this point. Manchester? Did I hear Manchester?
Yeah, well, Dawn's that part of the world as well, sort of more leads and things. Yeah, and Stephen, what are you up to this week?
So I'm mostly event planning. We are finalising venue for Search Leeds next year. Apparently the Royal Armouries can't hold 800 this time, so we are considering a bigger move, which would be fun. Also launching first series of seminars tomorrow. So more free events, just generally trying to get more people into Leeds, talking about SEO, getting all of the agencies and businesses through Leeds kind of talking about SEO as well. So that's the first one of those is tomorrow night, and then hopefully we'll have some announcements about Search Leeds next year. It'll be next July again, in the next few days, hopefully.
Yeah, excellent. Do you get many who go because it's not Brighton? Bloody Southerners. We're going to support a northern conference.
You know what, I think we get a little bit of a different crowd, but we also get the same crowd. So, the 400 people who go to Brighton every year, we saw a good chunk of those as well in Leeds. It's nice to not have to drive 5-6 hours to get there, definitely. But, because we've got so many local search businesses in the area as well, we get a bunch of people who I don't think would have been able to get to Brighton quite so easily. It's 2-3 days out of the office for someone in Leeds, isn't it? So
yeah, and you're a lot closer for those in Scotland. Although let's face it, it's not a long flight from Scotland. You're still, it's more hassle getting from Gatwick sometimes than it is getting the flight from Scotland. But, there you go. Again, if you've got a link to some of those events, stick them in the event page, and I'm sure people would love to see that. Terry, what are you up to this week?
Oh, in the words of David Bowie, I'll be putting out fires with gasoline. I just wanted to say that. That's all.
Yeah.
I was working on a shopping feed and got some really nice results from it. So I'm just going through an Excel sheet, adding some new columns and macros so I can do a real close evaluation and, fine tune it even more, but really good results. Very happy. Haven't done that in a while, so I haven't lost the touch, Ammon.
Cool. Excellent. I must admit, other than the work stuff, I'm spending this week doing a little comparison of my favourite Bootstrap framework against Google's new version of Angular, and just seeing which I prefer to work with. That's it for me. So I think we will take ourselves off air, and anyone that wants to jump in, the link is still there if you want to jump in. Meanwhile, thanks for joining us.